Hello beautiful people, Anton here from Warhorse Training. I'm here today to talk about something that I didn't particularly want to mention. I said I was going to do a video on it, and if I am anything, I'm a man of my word. So here's a video about the reason why I started, and this is not a sob story. As I said guys, this is not a sob story. If I do get a little bit emotional, I will try and rein it back in. This is just fact as to why I started training, why I started martial arts, and why I had to change who I was as an individual and focus on things like that tonality, focus on things like that confidence, focus on things like approaching people and starting conversations alongside fitness, health, strength, mobility, learning how to fight, defend myself, structure in my days, things like getting up in the morning, going to bed at night, the support network that's around me and how I manage to deal with the day when we have difficult times. Without further ado guys, let's get on with this. So I've had a couple of people asking me to do that video about why I started, because I mentioned it in one of my other videos. I think it was the Bruce Lee one, can't remember. I'll leave a few links below once I recap. The fact of the matter is, when I was younger, I was scrawny, I was small, I was weak, I was not strong-minded, and I was not the person that you see today and people know today. We had some family struggles. I'm not going to divulge too much into that, but basically that came along with some other worries, but mainly it was the bullying that was a factor. So I was severely bullied up until the age of probably about 14, to the extent where I was tied up with a skip rope and dragged around the playground. I had my knees done in by a table, I had a chair leg through the chest, I've had my fingers broken which were stamped on the stairs at the top of Ryton Park. I've got a scar across the top of my head where I was leaning back on the chair and one of these guys decided to move the chair and crack my head open on it. I've got one ear bigger than the other, I got dragged the full length for a school bus once upon a time, I've got my violin wrapped over my head. I got a scar above my lat just where the tattoo is that was on the Bruce Lee video, where a scooter handlebar at the top of my dad's house got taken out and wrapped into my lap, and unfortunately that caused an issue. Now, I've had a lot of other problems. I mean, this disturbed me a lot. I couldn't deal with things very well, so unfortunately, you know, I took it out on the people I loved, family, friends, my brother, teachers, etc. It resulted in me going as very much of an introvert and kind of dealing with life, you know, depression, anxiety, not wanting to be here. Let's call it wanting to call it a day. I don't like to reminisce too much on that. My mum took me to one side, typical Yorkshire lass, and turned around to me and says, if you don't hit these guys back, I'm going to hit you harder. Now, she didn't mean that in a form of harassment or bullying or you know, child abuse in any way, shape or form. It was more the fact of, why are you letting these guys hit you and bully you? If you stand up, it could change. So she took me to the dojo alongside with my dad. Got trained by a guy, fantastic, called Neil Bucaritis. It was absolutely amazing. We learned karate. Anyway, I did like 7 years of that. I did things like competing in the Blackpool Towers when they did the illuminations. Stayed on a couple of caravan sites to do other competitions on behalf of the dojo. I moved my way up through the rankings of the belts and become actually quite good at defending myself. The fact of the matter was, I still couldn't defend myself outside of that dojo because in here was broken. As soon as someone talked to me, shouted at me, I stuttered, stumbled, couldn't deal with confrontation, couldn't handle the big bright world out there. Now, it took me a long time to learn this, and there was a few contributing factors along the way. I mean, my mum coaching me and counselling me, official counsellors talking to me, psychiatrists, etc., medication, other things. All that's in the past. Obviously moved on a long way from there, from being 7, being 14, around that mark. Things that dragged me through was silly things, like, believe it or not, Dragon Ball Z. You know, used to watch Dragon Ball Z, it dragged me out the gutter and made me think that I can ascend and become more powerful, a better version of myself, and strive for excellence, and just in this physical demeanour. I cannot be this scrawny guy all this time, all my life, and just get bullied and be a pushover. I've got the skills, now let's get some size. So I used to do things that wasn't, you know, was outside of the dojo and training, and things like, believe it or not, calisthenic lifting with tins of beans, just holding them out. You know, I started researching and learning things at a very young age. Heroes, superheroes, I was massively into, you know, the X-Men. 90s X-Men, massively into Spider-Man, 90s Spider-Man. These are all the cartoons that were on TV. I became quite a bit of a nerd and a bit of a cult classic towards movies. Again, with being an introvert, you tend to cling on to every little thing that you can. Now, I mean, I'm not gonna go too much about it, but I'll show you guys. I'll show you. So, prime example, here is a little bit of my DVD collection, and so on. That's how much I needed to find myself. I needed to become that introvert, I found comfort in stuff. I started collecting things like not only DVDs, but things like music, CDs, things like pens. I had like the best pencil case in the world, and it was mine. It was all mine. Everything was mine. And I couldn't deal with it, and I couldn't share. It destroyed me. The fact of the matter is, it destroyed me. And seeing these Dragon Ball Z characters, Vegeta I was really, really close to. Everybody tend to represent me as Goku later on in life, very much that outward-going happy guy, doesn't really care, but when he comes down to the business, I know how to react and I can deal with it. But growing up, it was very much Vegeta. It was very much, I'm trying so hard and I was failing and I was getting beat up by everybody and I couldn't understand why. And I had that pride and I had that arrogance and I had that chip on my shoulder and I had, I didn't have his attitude. Obviously, I was very much an introvert, but I could relate to him more than anyone else. And obviously the Marvel characters, things like Hulk, I felt like that weedy guy that had something inside that was better, that could just rage out and become more. And obviously I divulged it into actors, things like Sylvester Stallone, Dolph Lundgren, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Lee, Brendan Lee, so many more. And this is why I'm going to do the Train for TV episodes, because these iconic people had different training methods, different methodologies that they used to stick to, and they got their desired physique. They are obviously famous and massive icons for me in my life. One other thing that inspired me was obviously looking at Jean-Claude Van Damme and people like Wesley Snipes, etc., Billy Banks. I could list forever, I'm really sorry. Is the kickboxing avenue. So in the dojo we used to do kickboxing. So I started leaning more on the kickboxing and started to do more competitiveness in the kickboxing and become very, very good at it, very flexible, could get my leg above my head, stand up against a wall and kick it. Even at 118, whatever I am, kilograms, I can still do that now. I can still kick my head, my head above my leg. That'd be funny, my leg above my head. And that's the truth. So obviously it's stood the test of time. Now, I had coping mechanisms, I had issues with the depression, etc. Couldn't deal with life, didn't particularly want to be here. I had to get these building blocks in place to get a stable platform, a stable foundation to start building who I was around. And I looked into things like the tonality, how I'm coming across. I looked into things like how to manage given situations, stress and anxiety management, which is still ongoing. I attended things like seminars on different things, mind counselling, etc. Met new people, talked to new people, figured out how to start conversations, started getting myself knowledgeable in multiple different avenues. So I had loads of things I could talk about, things like fashion, training, martial arts, things like art. I'm very, very artistic and I absolutely love it. Things like going out on my motorbike. I then started racing motorbike and then started going out on the BMX. I become very, very good at skateboarding once upon a time. Free running, used to free running across the top of Bassett Law Hospital with a lot of my friends, I don't want to mention too many, but Crikey Wilson, they won't mind, I used to do it a lot with those. And this is how I managed to pick apart, and I became very, very quickly very good at coping with stressors, anxiety, issues, but more importantly, coping with situations when people started getting aggressive and assertive and bullying towards me. Now, I learned how to play guitar. I learned how to do violin, obviously, as you heard, it got wrapped over my head. I learned how to do first aid. I learned all about different animals. I wanted to be a vet once upon a time. I just explored every avenue I could possibly do, and anything that interests me. I become basically a jack of all trades, master of none, but my knowledge was so vast that I could touch on all far corners of the universe. So anybody I met, I had a relatable subject that I can communicate with them. I absolutely love the outdoors, walking, jogging, hiking, kayaking, canoeing, whitewater rafting. I am scared of heights, but I ended up doing abseiling a couple of times actually. Bungee jumping, things like that. All these little tiny things to just spark conversations and make me more of a reputable person. Anyway, days to come, I started working at a very, very young age. I'm not going to mention what age because I could get a few people in bother. But I started doing things like gardening, landscaping, window cleaning, car washing at a young age. I then started tater rumbling for a chip shop. I was tater rumbling for a chip shop alongside glass collecting in a bar, alongside working for Domino's Pizzas, and then that became into doing like deliveries as well. So I was juggling loads of different work at the same time, and it was just absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. There was no issues with that. Now, alongside this work platform, I got booted out of school at 14, unfortunately. 14, 15, it's very hard to remember. It's on my CV, but I mean, like all you guys out there, I bet you don't look at your CV too often. Because once you're in a job, you tend to be happy and not tend to look elsewhere. But like I said, I left school early. I was quite clever, but unfortunately, I had this very, very bad bullying situation. Then I got very, very qualified and strong and fit and fighting, and I became a little bit more of a, let's call it an arsehole, to be honest. Anybody that challenged me, I accepted it. Anybody that hit me, I hit them harder. Anybody that wanted to fight, I arranged it after school. And I had support from family members and things like that, because they saw it as all of the depression and the introvert side of wanting to call it a day and going down that avenue. They saw it then as being, oh, this is the opposite. You know, we don't want him to be a bully, but if he's dealing with things, that's good. Now, in dealing with things, unfortunately, I ended up with a very, very bad reputation at school. The teachers wasn't best pleased with me. They was happy with my qualifications and my learning and my potential grades for the GCSEs, but they was not happy with me being in that school. And to be honest, every bully in that school was probably not happy with me being there anyway. I never bullied people that suffered, or, you know, I was friends of everybody, nerds, people that, you know, loved metal music, skateboarders, townie type people, fashion icon people, etc, etc, etc. The list is long, but the fact of the matter is, anybody that bullied anybody, I made it my personal chip on my shoulder, we shall call it, to be there when they was bullying someone and react, and then obviously organise fights afterwards. But 7-8 nearly fights outside of school, and it got to a point where my headmaster, deputy headmaster, Mr. Maddock, absolutely hated me, and it was very much, you're out. So I went to college, had to do something therapeutic, did hairdressing, massaging, holistic therapy, learned how to do, you know, all these wonderful, pretty girly things, and met some wonderful people along the way. You know, did Indian head reflexology, Swedish body, holistic therapy, did anatomy and physiology of the human body. Then I went into bodybuilding and supplements. Obviously refined my martial arts and got a qualification in kickboxing and actual boxercise. Did my personal training qualification, my fitness instructing qualification, and did something what's called a marine circuit qualification. Anyway, 32 different diplomas at the age of 19. Alongside working all these other jobs. I've done loads of different jobs since as well, but I'm not going to divulge too much. Fact of the matter is, I coped, I dealt with it, I moved forward. I then went into lifting. You know, lifting weights become a passion of mine. I stepped away from the martial arts side of things, and I started lifting, I started coping with things, started slowing things down. Instead of juggling 6 jobs at a time as well as college, which were all 10 hours here and there, etc., I actually started going into management. You know, worked in a bar, moved from a bar into work selling conservatories, into retail, etc, etc, etc. And the management bug got me, where I could actually not only manage myself, I could manage other people and be there for them. I was there to give something back, and everybody I met along the way that had issues or problems, I could support them and look after them in the right way as well, which I'm really proud of. So that's me. And the reason why I started, from being that kid that was bullied, issues of family, etc, etc, to then becoming the person that's found something inspirational, being the dojo, Dragon Ball Z, the heroes, the actors, the kickboxing, to then getting jobs and coping with my depression, anxiety and issues, and doing some gardening on the side. You know, we've got things like being in the allotment with my mum, getting closely connected with my family, bridging that gap that I made when I was suffering with my family, because it wasn't their fault, it was mine. It's a coping mechanism. Pushing everybody else away because I can't deal with it, therefore it's everyone else's fault. And then aspiring to, you know, lift in great heights, management, and to be the individual that I am today. Like, comment and subscribe, guys, to YouTube and Facebook. Thank you so much for listening, and tune into the next video. Take care.